Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight my show is titled Pandemic Peaks. Everybody wants to know when that peak is coming. We've been told by the Surgeon General of the United States that the next 2 weeks will be like America's Pearl Harbor. He described that the next 2 weeks will be very painful and probably the most difficult time that Americans have faced in their entire lifetime. And since we have never had a pandemic of this proportion in the last 100 years, that we have in our generational memory for folks that are alive right now, except for maybe those who are over the age of 100, there is nothing to compare this to. We don't have a blueprint for how to behave during a pandemic. We don't have a blueprint to tell us what to do to preserve our own lives. So, of course, we need to look to the leadership of the world, the scientists, the doctors, the frontline workers, the healthcare workers and first responders who are seeing day to day what is happening across the globe. And we here at A Mexican Crossing Lines and 88.1 FM are going to do our best to bring you update information that we have curated from a variety of sources to bring you up to date on what are the most important things that you need to know right now. A Michigan scientist has said that this 2-week period spoken about by the Surgeon General is just not accurate. It's going to be, quote unquote, for the long haul. And so we have to start to come to terms with the fact that the pandemic is going to peak at different parts of our country at different times, and that we could even have a second wave of outbreaks due to this COVID virus. We're going to talk about all of that, and I'm going to show you how the disaster vultures that I have been reporting on and con artists that I have been exposing on my show are taking advantage of people during this pandemic. All of that coming up on my show today. But first, I want to thank folks for their support and for their messages to our station. We appreciate that you are donating to keep our reporting going during these difficult times. Duke, how can folks follow us and make a
tax-deductible contribution? Yes. Hello, folks. Welcome to the show tonight. Hope you're doing well. I hope people are safe. I hope you're adhering to staying at home and not going out and having contact with people in the community. I mean, it's really hard, but we're doing it. We want to keep safe. We want to stay alive. We don't want to spread this virus. We appreciate the support we get from people. We love that you contact us for the radio listening audience and the people that may be new to these programs. You can get hold of us in many ways. You can give us a call on our message line at 701-566-0917. Again, that number is 701-566-0917. You can also email Cindy at kpppfm.com or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. You can go to Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead Radio. You can also find us at Mexi-Can and the People's Press Project. You can tweet us at media_PPP. Also, don't forget to go to kpppfm.com and look at our programming. We have years of programming. All the shows are put in one spot so you can find them easily. And also, when you're there, go to kpppfm.com/donate. That's where you'll be able to make a tax-deductible donation to us because we're a nonprofit organization. We're non-commercial media. Viewers and listeners like you support us, and we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to go to Duke 1517. That's my YouTube channel, and we stream on there and on Facebook simultaneously.
Yes, we do. Thank you for following and sharing our programs and for joining in the conversation, which you can do by watching our live stream on Facebook and you can comment or you can call into the station and leave a message. I want to go to the world numbers right now and check out how we are doing across the globe in terms of confirmed cases of COVID-19. Right now, we have a total of 1,345,048 cases of COVID-19 worldwide. Total deaths in the world are 74,565, and total recovered are 276,515. Were there big jumps there?
Yeah, there were. We did this graphic about an hour ago, and the cases have went up by 54,000, and the deaths have went up by several hundred, it looks like. But there's not that many more people have recovered. There's a few more recovery, but the cases have went up, and the deaths.
50,000 in the last hour?
Yes.
Cases?
Yeah.
That's astounding. Worldwide, I mean, the numbers are kind of baffling. When you're thinking like in my community from one day to another,
Yeah.
the numbers have doubled or something like that. It's scary. But when you look at in an hour how much they grow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the U.S. cases. Right now, we are at 366,112 cases, 10,859 deaths, and 19,573 people have recovered.
Yeah, and the graphics now are old, and it went up 10,000 more cases
In the U.S.
in the U.S. and about almost 1,000 new deaths and a few recoveries.
Wow. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, pretty scary.
New York is over 131,000 cases, Duke.
Wow.
To be exact, there are 131,916. New cases are at, they grew in new cases by 8,898 since yesterday. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Their total deaths are now up to 4,758. They had 599 new deaths. Those numbers are really, really shocking. Tell us what's going on in Minnesota.
Well, closer to home in Minnesota, we have 986 people have tested positive, and they have 470 people that don't have to be isolated anymore. But the total deaths in Minnesota has been 30 since it started. Now in North Dakota, 18 new positive cases have happened, and since this was produced earlier in the morning, one more person has died in North Dakota, so there's a total of 4 people who have died. Out of these 18 new positive cases, again, we like to show our local community, Cass County, and 9 of those people have actually tested positive, and it ranges from a woman in her 30s, a man in his 30s, a woman in her 20s, another one in their 20s, a woman in their 60s, and another woman in her 20s, another man in his 30s, and a man in his 60s, and a man in his 40s, and a man in his 70s. And all of them, or not all, some are under investigation, but they're all from close contact.
And what about North Dakota, Duke?
Oh, we did North Dakota.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought
That was
you were
North Dakota.
I thought you were still on Minnesota.
Nope.
Well, the reason I got a little distracted is because I'm also paying attention to people sending in messages, and we have a variety of people, including Beth and Lisa and Pebble, all of whom have commented that the numbers of deaths are skewed because they're seeing reports. I haven't confirmed any of this, folks. I'm just reading what our listeners and our viewers are reporting to us live at this moment. And what they're saying is that deaths are being reported as COVID-19 when they're not. And that, in fact, the news has been called out. They didn't tell me what outlet, but that family members called out the news outlet that said that a family member died of COVID-19 when they did not. And I'm sure that there are stories out there that are like that, where, folks, listen, the number of people that are going to be clogging our healthcare system at this critical time and dying and then having to be removed, like what's happening in New York, where they have to bring in refrigerated trucks and the military to help deal with the overflow of sick people all at once and the bodies that are going to be stacking up in those situations, there are probably going to be mistakes made.
Yeah.
There are probably going to be hasty decisions made. And somebody is, I mean, can you imagine what the coroners are going to be taken by?
Sounds horrible. And also,
How much can they even do?
media also just grabs stuff and runs with it. And if there's misreporting and it gets out there, people are trying to make attempts to ratchet it back and make those corrections. We use the John Hopkins information. We try to take it from the most reliable source, in the country that's documenting, but also things that are being called into them, so they're overwhelmed with getting numbers. They're not coming from all over the country. Some things are going to be missed, and it doesn't make it any safer for us to be in contact with people, even if the numbers aren't quite correct. Like I've said in this show many times, I would rather be as cautious as I can and later find out that I was just too cautious and I wasted my time. Great. But I'm going to spend my time really trying to be cautious and really trying to isolate from this so we can be safe. Don't want to alarm people, but also I just want everyone to be safe and to try their best.
Yeah, I mean, we recently reported on our page that Dr. Birx, one of the experts on the coronavirus task force of the President of the United States, had told people that they should not leave in the next 2 weeks. These 2 weeks, the Surgeon General has said, are going to be very important for America, that we should not leave at all. We should try not to leave our homes at all, not even to go grocery shopping, not even to go to the pharmacy, which up until this point had been left open as businesses that are essential services that we all need, grocery shopping and pharmacies. And there were a lot of people that got very upset that we posted this news report on our page. And they called us fake news because we reported what Dr. Birx said. Look, I can't help the fact that the Surgeon General and that the doctors that are on this task force are giving you what they hope you will take to heart as very real advice about how to protect your life at a peak time in some parts of our country when people that are sick and sloughing off virus at high rates are going to be out and about. And there won't be, this virus is very, very contagious. It travels. It's a virus that can be suspended in the air. So there are a lot of factors, and we're still learning about it, that we don't really know. It's important for the people that are in the leadership of our country to try to preserve life. Are they going to go down and hogtie you if they see you going to the grocery store or picking up medicines for your heart at the pharmacy? No, they're not. And they're not going to stop stupid people from being COVIDiots and going out and hanging out at the beach or going fishing with their buddies or having a party at their friend's house. They're not going to be able to stop that either. I think that when you talk about laying down a law or telling people what to do, if you're not going to do it across the board, and we don't have everyone in the country, we don't have a federally mandated stay-at-home order, and we don't have any way, I think, really to enforce that effectively during a pandemic, there's going to be people that are just not going to do what you tell them that they should do to preserve the lives of their family, themselves, and the people around them. And that's unfortunate because they're going to cause more spread and more death. But there isn't anything we can do about that. All we're doing is reporting to you what is available information out there for you to make the best informed decision.
Exactly.
Don't you think, Duke?
Oh, yeah. And then we also take time to analyze some stuff, sometimes give some opinions or analysis. I was thinking that we've been buying our groceries, having them delivered. So I haven't been going to the grocery store. And I talked on a previous show where I go through a cleaning process with the bleach solution that's recommended, 4 parts bleach to 4 parts water. And that's great. It's more expensive. I'm spending more money, but we've stocked up on some things. But then I'm looking online and looking at the services, and they're not taking SNAP, the food stamps, the supplemental nutrition assistance program, which means if you're low income and you have SNAP, I hope they change that, and I hope people can find someone that does delivery. You can use SNAP, but it means those people will have to go to the store to get groceries unless someone says, "I'll deliver for you." In fact, but you have to pay them with SNAP. I mean, it's
I want to just share with you that I did research that, and in some places, you'll have to call your grocery stores and find out who's offering this. If you are on SNAP, you can drive up, so you can contact them, have them pick out your groceries for you, and then you can drive up for pickup if you have SNAP. They'll take your.
Good.
So I think there are other ways for those folks, but you do have to call. And you know what? Right now, you can lead by example. You can be the person that's on SNAP that gets together with some of your other friends that are on SNAP and call the grocery store together and say, "Hey, we would like to ask for you to make some kind of a special service available," because a lot of the people that are on SNAP have small children. Many of those people are on WIC as well. And so you have to find different ways that you can get the services that keep you safe. Now, speaking of safety, in our hospitals, many places across the country have canceled all elective surgeries to stop the blockage that we're expecting when people start to peak in their states in terms of coronavirus cases. What's going on in North Dakota with elective surgeries, Duke?
Well, in North Dakota, elective surgeries continue in North Dakota despite federal calls to stop during the crisis. And Minnesota and South Dakota are among states to ban non-essential procedures because of the coronavirus outbreak. North Dakota has been a tough one. But we have a Governor Doug Burgum, who refuses to do a stay-at-home because he thinks that it's just so rural, it's not going to be a problem. And it's another example of where he's encouraging people to go on as business as usual. And the numbers are rising. Like I said, numbers in our community are over half. In fact, they're over half of all the cases in the state. And also we're the ones that have the most hospitals in the state. And so they're very stubborn in North Dakota. And so every day, the Supreme Court had to actually decide to let renters stay in their homes and not have any evictions, not have any eviction proceedings. The governor wouldn't do that, but the state Supreme Court did. So we have a stubborn governor who's putting people at risk.
He would probably say he's visionary, because in his press conference several days ago, he actually said that he thought it would be really neat, and it would be a feather in our cap, in his cap, a feather in his cap, like a memento, a memory that would be very, pleasing to him as a governor. If it turned out that we had no orders restricting business and government, etc., in the state, and we still ended up with the least amount of deaths, or a very low amount of deaths, as compared to the rest of the states in the country. And I was like, well, that's a gamble. I would never play Russian roulette with the lives of my constituents, but
that's right.
I'm not the governor.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So how are folks doing in terms of social distancing in your neck of the woods? Are you seeing people taking the necessary precautions when you look out the window, when you drive somewhere and you're seeing people out on the streets? We've been looking out our window a lot. And aside from the beautiful robins I've seen more of, and cardinals and blue jays in our area, I love birds. I don't know if you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen some people biking with their families, walking their dogs, and I'm assuming they're all quarantining together, but I don't know if these two bikers are. And they were hanging out in front of our house.
Yep, on Sunday afternoon, and I heard the bikes out there, and I looked out, and I watched one stop, and then the other one pulled right up next to him, and they're sitting there together, chatting back and forth, and they're not even an arm's width away from each other, and they sat there for about 10 minutes talking, and then they took off and continued riding. So I was thinking, these guys are why are they so close? I thought, well, go ahead, do your motorcycle, go biking. You usually stay far away from each other because you're on a motorcycle. But when they stopped, they were right close together. So like they had not read the memo yet.
One of our listeners, Karen, writes in, my son's girlfriend has pneumonia and was told that they would treat her as a COVID patient. Well,
Probably safer than sorry.
I suppose that probably will happen in many cases because they really don't have the tests available across the country. Listen, I recently spoke to a friend of mine. She's practically raised in our home, so we treat her as if she were our cousin, as if she were a member of our family. Her name is Minnie McCabe. She's an emergency room nurse in the hospital in my hometown of Muscatine, Iowa. And I called her to ask her how she was doing. Of course, she was very concerned about the people that are not taking this spread seriously and continuing to infect people by having close contact and congregating and going to the parks and stuff like that. But also, she told me that they have 4 ventilators at the hospital in this town of about 40,000 plus people. And she also told me that the COVID cases that were coming out, especially those that were, serious enough to need intubation and ventilation, were being sent to bigger hospitals in larger metropolitan areas in Illinois and in Iowa City. And what I learned from speaking to her, remember, she is the head nurse in the emergency room. She manages all the staff at this hospital, the healthcare providers there. They're already being asked to recycle PPE at this hospital. Not that she's doing it, but she was already asked. They already don't have the necessary supplies in these smaller towns. Now, I'm not saying that Iowa is like North Dakota, but we do have rural populations. We are in the heart of America, so the pandemic numbers and the peaks are going to reach us right around the same time, which I don't think is going to be until 4 to 6 weeks down the road. Not in the next 2 weeks, not in the next 4 weeks, but 4 to 6 weeks. This is just a prediction based on how I've been seeing the numbers grow ever since we started reporting this. I guess time will tell if I was right or wrong. But I think that this is going to be going on where there's going to be peaks in different states and emergencies in these different states for the next 6 weeks, at least, if not longer. And, what's going to happen in the big cities when they get overwhelmed, like what's happening in New York and what's happening in New Jersey and in Massachusetts and Connecticut, is that the smaller hospitals that don't have the capacity to treat COVID virus, which are sending them to the bigger hospitals, are not going to have space for those folks. Those big hospitals are going to have to say, sorry, or those people are going to have to go to military hospitals that are built on the fly, like the one that they built in New York's what's it called, that park?
Times Square.
No, not Times Square. Central Park. Yeah, like makeshift hospitals like that. I think that the only way that we can protect our rural communities that don't have the resources to take care of a whole bunch of people from one town, even if they're small, is to stay at home, to protect ourselves. Look at San Francisco. San Francisco has 900,000 people, and they've only had 8 deaths.
Wow.
8 deaths. Because they decided that they were going to quarantine and make people stay at home, give a stay-at-home order before almost anyone did. That is the effect of staying at home. You have less death. It's just that simple. And here's what's going on in Iowa as a result of also not having any stay-at-home orders. This is a post from one of my Facebook friends that lives in Iowa. Officially, Iowa has made world news as doubling their infection rate in one day and, and being one of only 5 states without a stay-at-home ordinance. We officially have community spread. Congratulations to all you morons not taking social isolation seriously. Our hospitals will be overwhelmed, probably worse than New York, but hey, at least Governor Reynolds scored some brownie points with her rich constituents. Most of us are disposable to her. I think that there will be sentiments like this in states that did not have stay-at-home orders, because in other situations, in other natural disasters where leaders are asked to make quick decisions and they vacillate or they make them too late, there can be a lot of loss of property, a lot of damage, a loss of business, all sorts of things. But in this case, it's going to be loss of life. Loss of life. And that's how these governors' tenure will be measured. And I think that's something that they really should take into account as more and more people ask for some leadership from the top. In Texas, things have taken a quick turn. Remember, Texas is one of those places that didn't have any stay-at-home orders and wouldn't issue them. And also, this was one of the states that really had a lot of folks that were adamant that they were not going to be put in stay-at-home jail and stopped from going to their local eatery or what have you.
Yep.
Well, that's quickly changed. Now they're mandating everyone to wear masks in public or face a $1,000 fine.
Wow.
How things have changed, right?
Right.
So we should talk about the masks because everybody is making masks, sewing masks, complaining about who has the right kind of masks and who doesn't. And here is what we know about the protection efficiency of different types of masks. As you can see in these graphics, the only masks that actually protects you if being the wearer, okay? We're talking about protection for the wearer or for the rest of society, the other people around you. And the mask, regardless of what kind of mask you use, whether it's an N95, a surgical mask, an FFP1 mask, an activated carbon mask, a cloth mask, or a sponge mask, if you are wearing the mask and you happen to be asymptomatic but shedding virus, it will protect others to varying degrees from you spreading that virus and having nothing on your mouth to stop it from flying up to 27 feet or further. So in that regard, if everyone is wearing a mask, and since we don't have enough tests, most people don't know if they have COVID, then we are protecting society from all of those people that are shedding the virus unknowingly. Now let's talk about protection for your own self. If you are wearing the N95 mask, you should probably be a medical personnel, a doctor, a surgeon, or some kind of essential worker, because essential workers should be the only ones that have that kind of protection for themselves right now, because we don't have enough. Because we simply don't have enough. Is that the case, that only the essential workers have those masks? No. There's all sorts of other people that have had them. Preppers, those people that are preparing for the end of times.
Oh, yeah.
That have stockpiled them, that, have boxes and boxes of them in their bunkers somewhere in the middle of nowhere. There's all sorts of folks that have them. And the reason why we aren't told as a society to wear N95 masks is because we would make the shortage even worse. And, to the other varying degrees of protection masks that are available, I will say once again that the best thing that we can do to help our frontline workers to keep the need for masks from being something very serious, I know there are a lot of local business owners that are still serving people that are considered essential businesses, whether they're serving food and takeout, whether they are running businesses like liquor stores, or they're running, convenience stores, or they're running any of the businesses like nursing homes that need masks. And they're asking the public to give them masks because they can't get masks. And those people, I think, are the ones that, as a society, we should be focusing on providing the extra care, the extra protection, even if it doesn't protect them 100% from the virus. It can help protect people from spreading the virus.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's my little rant on masks. Do you have anything to add about the masks?
Well,
Your thoughts on the masks?
just that N95 masks have been around, and people have gotten them for many things. I have a respirator that I got because I worked with insulation, and it has fiberglass particles. So I've used that. I've done really dusty areas, been around pathogens and toxins, and so I've had masks for years. All sorts of different variety ones, different jobs that we did. And, some people, and I reused them because, I wasn't dealing with the virus or anything. The thing is that as people come in contact, especially medical workers, they have to figure out ways to clean them that's effective. And people have been doing that. But they're normally in those situations, you'll use them once and throw them away. And that's where the shortages come in because no one was prepared to have all those masks that were needed for an extended period of time. But people have masks, but they're varying effectiveness. And, every time I went to the doctor, they would give you a surgical mask to wear if you had a cold to basically protect other people from you. So it's like a variety of things are being done, but at the same time, the best solution is just stay a distance. Don't be around people. If people actually have the virus, they have to be quarantined. You have to be quarantined too, just to avoid catching it.
And let me just say that there are still going to be people. I think it's only human nature. When you see somebody, you behave in the way that you are accustomed to behaving around the people that you see. So if you're outside and your neighbor comes up to you and starts talking to you too close, are you going to have the wherewithal to say stop? How are you going to keep that person from getting too close to you? How are you going to keep the neighbor's dog, who could also have virus on them if that house has virus in it? Could get on the dog's hair, can go in the dog's face. How are you going to keep the friendly neighbor's dog from running up on you? How are you going to keep the children of the neighbor, or when you're walking down the street, from running up on you, from coming up to you, from coughing on you, from spitting on you, from licking you, from licking the groceries? I mean, I've showed you report after report after report of people that are kind of going COVID crazy and are manifesting it in all sorts of very antisocial ways. This is what our Surgeon General has said. This is the reality. The next 2 weeks is going to be our Pearl Harbor moment. It's going to be our 9/11 moment. It's going to be the hardest moment for many Americans in their lives. Now, a lot of folks are pushing back on what this Surgeon General has said, not because they don't think that the next 2 weeks are going to be difficult, but because they don't believe it's long enough. They feel that he is underplaying the severity of the peaks of this pandemic that are going to come in rapid succession from the coasts of our country toward the inside of our country every couple of weeks, closer and closer. So that's my take on it, folks. We'll see what happens. I suggest that you prepare to hunker down for 6 weeks, possibly longer. That's my suggestion. Get prepared, hunker down if you can, order, and if not, start making arrangements. Start calling food pantries. Start figuring out what you can do to go for longer. Start making plans so that you can ask for help. Start reaching out, because that's the most important thing, is to plan ahead right now. Not to wait until crisis mode and then to start looking for help. Meanwhile, in other news, I wanted to share with you that the caravan, and a lot of people were asking me, what's going on with the caravan, Cindy? What's going on with the caravans? There's still coyotes operating in the caravans that are telling people everything's fine, business as usual. Here's a post where they're talking about people in Mexico protesting. Let me share with you that, of course, you can't read this is in Spanish, but what it says is that we basically, we're screwed here, says someone. We're waiting for them to bring food to the people. And someone says yes, and more have come out to protest. So people are protesting. What kind of protesting is happening within the Border Support Network? You've seen the protests that they've done at different detention facilities. Prior to the pandemic, they were burning things inside of these facilities. They were rioting. They were burning tires. This was a way for the organizers / coyotes of the Border Support Network that were operating in the smuggling operation to get the folks in government or human rights to do something to expedite processes so that they could get traveling papers, so that they could get buses, so that they could get shelter and food, so that the immigrants that were traveling in the caravan had the subsidy, if you will, because all of these things cost money, from different churches and shelters and priests and pastors and friars and nuns and local and state governments, and etc. Right? And the donations of the people of the world, right? And now that the pandemic has occurred, the people, both in the United States and throughout Latin America, that are organizing these individuals in the caravan are ramping it up. What is the rhetoric around this? That the detention facilities are like concentration camps. Remember, Anne Frank, this is what one of the activists within New Sanctuary Coalition was posting on their page. Mm-hmm. Remember that Anne Frank died in a concentration camp. Not because she was gassed, but she died of a pandemic disease or something like that, or some kind of disease. So the protest movement is about freeing everyone from the detention facilities. It's always been about freeing everyone from the detention facilities, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Haven't they, before the pandemic, been saying the entire time that we need to let all of the people out of the detention facilities? Prior to the pandemic, don't you remember that the people of the Border Support Network were having doctors and nurses do a death-in where they lie on the ground and paint chalk around themselves to show that they're all dead? And this was with regard to influenza. They said that the people that are inside the detention facilities are much more susceptible to influenza, and therefore they staged a protest where doctors and nurses took a box of influenza vaccines to a detention facility and demanded to be let inside so that they could shoot people up. And that didn't work. And neither will this, but the damage that is done, the protesting, and how the protesters spread virus and put our first responders at risk, that is very real. That will happen, is happening. Take a look at this report from Entorno Coahuila. This is at the border of Piedras Negras, Coahuila. And it is a shelter they lit on fire. You can see people jumping over the fence. That's electrified and razor wired fence there at the top. People are jumping out of the building. There's thick black smoke coming out. A number of people were arrested. And the scene was chaotic. I just want to share, I watched a variety of different videos. I didn't want to share one with you here because they were just a bunch of a cacophony of people screaming and yelling, and police vehicles and sirens and chaos, and you can't understand Spanish anyway, but it's very hard to hear all of that. But what I didn't hear, what I noticed is that the people that were on the outside were yelling at the police. Like, they were screaming at the police, "I don't care if you arrest me. I don't care. I don't care if you kill me. I want to make sure you go in there and save those people. Save them. Don't you care about their lives? You need to go in there and save their lives." This was a fire that was made from burning mattresses, those cots that they give them
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the foam cots and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, paper and whatever else they could get their hands on. This was not like a wildfire or some crazy thing. Yes, there were children, lots of children in the facility, and a lot of people got scared. But who scared them? Was it the authorities? Was it the governor? Was it the police? No, it was the migrants that were organized to create a crisis,
Mm-hmm.
to set things on fire, to bring attention to themselves in the media that they have demands. They've been in this facility for a month and they need to travel. There's a pandemic, stupid. You can't travel.
Mm-hmm.
Arrangements need to be made with your government for you to be returned to your country on the terms that the consulates have agreed to. The countries have agreed to. It's not up to you, the person that is traveling undocumented and illegally through other people's countries, to determine when and where you can travel during a pandemic. I'm sorry, but you don't get to make those decisions. The presidents, the governors, those are the people in whatever country you're in that are going to be making the decisions about where and when you can travel during a pandemic. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this other post I want to show you, this is also, and they're still communicating from the WhatsApp chat here that they were communicating in all the way back on the 15th of January of this year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're saying they're complaining that everything is closed. The effing president has closed all of the basically the strip bars. Table there. The word table is like, when you have people dancing on your tables.
Yep.
Yeah. They've canceled all of those. They've closed the bars and the nightclubs and the dance clubs and the massage parlors, he says. Other than that, things are normal. And that's their biggest concern, that they don't have access to the party. Where the party at?
Exactly.
And they're mad about it, They're like, "Oh, dang, that really,
Mm-hmm.
But one of them says, "Sí pues, aquí anda uno jalando pues." Kronos is the guy that says that. Yes, but I am still in business, he says. We're still pulling. We're still carrying people. We're still doing our work, which is being a coyote.
Yeah.
So they're still going about business as usual. How does that look? Well, look in Mexicali. It's being compared, Mexicali, which is in Baja California, not too far away, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from Tijuana,
Mm-hmm.
is on the front page of this newspaper with the headline, "Mexicali acts as if they were Wuhan during the pandemic," because people are just going about business as usual, which means they're not taking the necessary precautions, which means that when the numbers spike, when they actually start to find cases, when those cases start to multiply, when Mexico has tests available, if ever, those numbers are going to go up very rapidly. And finally, in this post in WhatsApp, they discuss whether or not it's easy to cross. Right in bold there, somebody asks, is it easy to cross to the other side, al otro lado, like the name of the Crooked Lawyers group?
Yep.
Is it easy to cross then? And it says a bunch of people are waiting and they're going on the train tracks. And someone asks, is it really easy to cross right now? And someone responds to that saying, well, yes, right now, it's all controlled by the mafia. You see the word mafia there?
Yep.
And the next person says, yes, because everything has stopped. Meaning trafficking of everything and travel and everything has stopped. And someone else responds to the question about crossing and how easy it is. Yes, see, lots of E's. Right now, yes, because everybody is paying attention to this illness, because everyone is distracted with the pandemic. That's why it's so easy to cross. So even during a pandemic, I want you to notice that there are people that will prey upon the situation. They are opportunists willing to take advantage of this situation in order for them to do their business as usual. And that would, of course, include Sandy, or as you may know her, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who recently, as I showed you, teamed up with New Sanctuary Coalition, got an anonymous tip, she said, from New Sanctuary Coalition to go and harass ICE agents moving children.
Oh, yeah.
Unaccompanied minors.
Yep.
You remember that, right?
Yeah, I do. And it was like, and also when we're watching, I thought, wait a minute, they're in New York, one of the largest airports in New York, and she's walking through crowds and she's bringing people with her, then she's filming, and there was no social distancing there, putting other people and her own life at risk of contacting disease, and it's like, I watched that video over and over again just to watch the stupidity and the carelessness.
Well, I'm not going to share the video again with you, but I wanted to jog people's memories and show my receipts, as I always do, so that you can remember who she mentioned, which is the New Sanctuary Coalition. Now, I told you that the leader, the executive director, who is himself an immigrant that is up for deportation, whose deportation New Sanctuary Coalition has been fighting against for a while, what was his name? Well, his name will come up in a second here, is a convicted felon. But also, I told you that these folks were working with Nicole Ramos of Al Otro Lado, who was doing fake marriages, and both New Sanctuary Coalition and Al Otro Lado and their lawyers and their people were committing fraud against the United States asylum process and immigration system. I showed you proof positive that they were making fake marriages, that they were practicing law without a license, and that they even admitted, as Nicole Ramos did in an article, that they caused Amber Alerts to be set off in Mexico because they removed unaccompanied minors from the country. That's what these folks have been up to. Trafficking people, smuggling people, trafficking children, and working with very unsavory criminal elements, all of whom have been under investigation for smuggling, for trafficking, for attacking our Border Patrol agents, for lying to our immigrations and custom enforcement personnel, and for continuing to participate in this criminal enterprise. So what are those folks doing during the pandemic?
Yeah.
Well, they want your money. They want to they want to continue to operate. They want to salvage their operation, because let's not forget, what did I tell you would happen as these people were bringing all of these folks to ask for asylum that they didn't qualify for? What did I say was going to happen? I told you that all of these people were going to clog up our detention facilities, and then they were going to call the detention facilities concentration camps. They filled the concentration camps that they now want to close. And during a pandemic, they want to make them all get released. And they're using the pandemic as the excuse. You caused an overcrowding in our detention system for this to wreak havoc on the lives of anyone inside of those buildings. All of you activists in the Border Support Network, you are going to have blood on your hands. The death of hundreds, if not thousands of people who you shuttered into a country to seek asylum, which they didn't qualify for, and to leave them stuck in detention facilities during a pandemic because you didn't care about the lives or the safety of these folks at any point in time. All you cared about is the money, the business, and the politics behind all of it. And that's exactly what they're doing. Nicole Ramos is busy asking for people for money. She posted on Twitter, "Do not leave your house tomorrow. Do support the work of Al Otro Lado.org and check out at La Untala's live DJ stream dance party from 3 to 5 PST. All proceeds help support AOL's fight against the fascists currently masquerading as the Department of Homeland Security. Hey, don't save your money for your rent or for your mortgage or your food. Give it to the crooked lawyers being investigated by Interpol and Homeland Security, which they call fascists,
Yep.
so that they can sue our government. That's what they want the money for. And give us money to sue the government during a pandemic.
Wow.
That sounds responsible, doesn't it?
No, that sounds horrible.
And remember that these lawyers were working with the new Sanctuary Coalition. And what did Kaji Dusha, I don't know what to call her. I can't pronounce her name. This pastor she's the co-chair of the organization. She's recently posted this a few days ago. New Yorkers, are you hearing all the helicopters? I haven't heard this many ever, except at Standing Rock. I'm guessing they're airlifting folks upstate. This is sonically terrifying. This is her feeling triggered because she was at Standing Rock.
Yeah.
And of course, she was at Standing Rock. All the phonies were at Standing Rock, including Sandy, a.k.a. AOC. So we looked up the photos. There she is, holding the white coat with the red ribbon on it.
Yep.
It's actually a minister's garb, which a lot of these clergy people went to Standing Rock in November, if you will recall. Here's their photo from November 3rd, and Kaja Duska is right there in the photo. And here is another photo they posted it on January 15th, but as you can see, there is no snow on the ground, so this is a much earlier photo from the November period of time when all the clergy went to Standing Rock. And they're on Flag Road, if you can recognize the background there. Kaja Duska is the one that's wearing she's all the way to the far right, wearing that cream-colored gown thing. Do you remember when all those people in the clergy got themselves arrested in November?
Oh, yeah.
At Standing Rock?
Of course I remember.
A lot of them ended up here at our house.
That's right.
And they all were dressed like that. It's weird because we picked them up out of jail and they were dressed like that. So we got to see this whole action up close and personal. And here's who they were rolling with. This is a picture from an article in the UU Church. You have to go back further. It's called Clergy Standing Rock and NOV Vanessa Lila June.
Here we go.
This is from an article from a UU Church publication that features Karen von Fossum, who was the minister of the UU Church, the Universalist Unitarian Church in Bismarck.
Yep.
Now, in this photo, if you could blow it up just a little bit more, I want to show you who is all the way to the right. It's Vanessa Dundon of the Border Support Network and the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Groups, and Lila June, who is currently running for Congress.
Oh.
Vanessa Dundon was later on in this month of November shot in the eye by police in a standoff on November 20th and went on to become a martyr of sorts of the Standing Rock protest, of this pipeline protest, and is a prominent figure in the Antifa-led border support network that came to follow. If you have noticed when I've reported about the border support network, I told you that they're using the same tactics that they employed at Standing Rock with their activism and superimposing it onto the border support network. They all adopt this pseudo-Indian spirituality of protecting the sacred and the water and protecting the rights, the human rights that everyone has to roam the earth and have open borders and fight against the border wall. And that started at Standing Rock. In fact, if you can listen for a moment, here is a video of Kaja Dusa. I don't know how she pronounces her name. We're going to hear it here in a minute. And she's going to she did a video encouraging people in her ministry to support Standing Rock. Here's what she said. Listen to the messaging.
So here's the truth. A lot of us have wondered if we would ever have stood on the right side of history as these big moments call for people to stand up. And so we wonder, would we have been the abolitionists during slavery? Would we have been willing to show up for the March on Washington? Would we have helped the Underground Railroad? Now is one of those moments. As a woman of faith, I listened to Jesus, who said, I am the living water. And I realized that water is holy and water is worth protecting. And that's why a number of us have decided to show up and to stand with the people at Standing Rock Reservation, where their very way of life is under threat. And we as Americans will have looked into history and thought, if we were around, we would have never let what happened to the Native people, to the First Nation people to happen. But indeed, we're letting it happen now. So I believe that as a Christian, it is our duty to listen to Jesus, the living waters, and to protect Jesus, to keep people from not polluting what God has given us. I hope that you will join me in standing with the First Nations people gathered at Standing Rock Reservation. Send your love, your support, your resources to them, because it's a sustained effort and they need us right here, right now.
You notice how they did that in little clips so that she could remember her lines?
Mm-hmm. Send us money.
Send us money. Send us. Now, I want you to skip ahead here to an AM Joy video. Oh, good. You got it all queued up. This is her interview on AM Joy. And she has always been an advocate for people with regard to immigration. So here she is defending the executive director of her organization, New Sanctuary Coalition.
If you're seeing this, I just got detained by ICE. I went to go check in. I went to court yesterday. I turned in my political asylum application, and I have court December 14th. But I went in today thinking that they were going to readjust my bond. They're retaliating against all activists, all organizers, people who have advocacy and who are out there fighting.
All right. Welcome back to AM Joy. That video was recorded by Virginia-based immigration rights activist Alejandra Pablos shortly after she was detained this week during a visit to Tucson for what she believed would be a routine check-in with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency on a pending deportation case. Pablos is one of several immigration rights activists across the country who've been targeted for deportation since Donald Trump took office. And while ICE denies targeting immigration activists, activists say the recent focus on the most vocal and most visible critics of Trump's immigration policies is indeed an unconstitutional attempt to silence political dissent. And joining me now is somebody who's been on the front lines of in defense of those activists, Reverend Kaji Dosha, co-chairwoman of the New Sanctuary Coalition. And Kaji, Reverend Dosha, thank you so much for being here. In the Washington Post on January 19th, ICE denied that they are targeting activists. Their quote, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement does not target unlawfully present aliens for arrest based on advocacy positions they hold or in retaliation for critical comments they make. Any suggestion to the contrary, they say, is irresponsible, speculative, or inaccurate. But according to a federal lawsuit that was filed by immigration rights activists that was reported on in the Intercept, defendants have investigated, surveilled, harassed, raided, arrested, detained, or even deported activists in order to silence them. According to the complaint, the sharp spike in immigration enforcement specifically targets the most vocal immigration rights activists, and it's intended to stifle dissent. Who's right?
Well, I will say that ICE certainly isn't. But before I keep going, Joy, I just want to thank you for giving us a chance to set the record straight and to talk about what's happening in this country, because national attention to this is really important to get it to stop. So, of course, ICE has been very clearly targeting our strongest activists, our most vocal critics of their work. And what they're doing is silencing and then disappearing them. I think deportation is not a strong enough word for what happens to people when ICE decides it's time for them to disappear and be quiet. And I don't know about you, but I had a different understanding of what kind of country we live in. I believe that we were supposed to be a place in which we welcome the stranger. And as a Christian, as a pastor, one of the first things that anyone who claims Christ, and so many people are claiming this as a Christian nation, of course, what we're seeing is that people are standing up and pushing activists and people who are coming here and criticizing this administration, criticizing the work of tearing apart families, criticizing how difficult it now is in a new way to live in this country and to serve and to work hard. And as people step forward, ICE is deciding, no more, you have to leave. It's really unacceptable.
And to further, and a little bit more in this this investigation that The Intercept did, this was in January. They're alleging that coalition members, and these are immigration activists, say that unmarked cars with heavily tinted windows have begun surveilling churches and movement leaders' homes. Clergy who work with New York's immigrant community say that ICE agents have repeatedly entered church property and interrogated people as they come and go from houses of worship. You yourself are a New York-based member of the clergy and an immigration rights activist. Have you seen that kind of activity?
We absolutely have, Joy, and it's really disturbing. So recently, on January 11th, someone who I've had the pleasure of working with for the past 8 years, Ravi Rugbeer, was detained on a regular routine check-in with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, who determined him not to be a threat at all in 2008. Now, Ravi is the leader of the New Sanctuary Coalition, which I co-chair here in New York City, and it is based at Judson Memorial Church. And just in the days leading up to Ravi's check-in on January 11th, when we first heard that a co-founder of this movement, Jean Montreville, was detained and soon and has even been deported. What happened is that we started to see these unmarked vehicles placed around the perimeter of Judson Church, which is right on Washington Square. And so our defense committee, members of the defense committee, went out and saw that these unmarked vehicles were there, and they knocked on the window and said, well, who are you with? And we saw Department of Homeland Security license plates on the floor. And they claimed that they weren't there for that. What we know is that they were coming to, we believe rather, is that they were coming to round up Ravi and to quiet him because he's been getting much more press attention. And we're seeing this happening across the country. As they took Jean for no reason, they claim that they're taking people who...
Okay. Rugby, whatever his name is, the executive director of this organization, is a felon. I didn't just tell you that our government wasn't unnecessarily, unfairly, unjustly targeting these so-called activists. I call them mercenaries, con artivists, because they're being investigated for crimes, for fraud, for smuggling, for trafficking children, for sex trafficking of children, for all sorts of things, which I have shown you the evidence of. I didn't just say that they were fake marrying people. I showed you the documents. I showed you the pictures. I didn't just tell you that they were kidnapping children. I showed you the news stories. I showed you the evidence. I showed you the pictures. I didn't just tell you that this man that is the executive director is a felon. I showed you what crime he committed. And it was a very serious crime for which most people are not allowed to stay in this country. It isn't shocking to me that they want to remove the executive director of this organization, especially when his co-chair is still being investigated by Interpol for being part of a smuggling operation and defrauding our government. And yet, these folks can go out there with a straight face and tell people they've done nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. By the way, and this is jaw-dropping, you have to go back a couple because you skipped ahead. Remember I told you to skip ahead?
Okay.
I want you to go back to the wiki. with Christine Blasey Ford. You went right past it. There it is. And this is from Kaji what did they say her name was?
Dusha.
Okay. I can never say
Dusha.
that appropriate correctly. But this is from the wiki. Kaji Spellman Duska. Did I say it right?
Dusha.
Dusha. Kaji Spellman Dusha, an American Christian minister and immigration rights activist who serves as the co-chair of the New Sanctuary Coalition. In her biography, it says that she is at Park Avenue Christian Church, which she just told you. She was nominated to serve as president of the alumni board for the Yale Divinity School. She was born on August 27, 1978. She is the youngest of 3 children. She is married with 1 child, and she has protested the detainment of immigrants, including that of her New Sanctuary Coalition co-chair, Ravi Rogbeer, the guy that's the felon.
Mm-hmm.
On October 2018, Dusha spoke at the protest against the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh in support of fellow Holton Arms School alumni Christine Blasey Ford, who had accused Kavanaugh of sexual assault. Her sermon on the topic of her standing next to her alumni sister, Christine Blasey Ford, in protest of Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, was then featured in the Washington Post.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think of that? I had no idea. Duke, your thoughts.
Well, it's amazing. I thought we'd be done with Standing Rock. It looks like it's never going to be done because these people are so connected to so many people. They're all criming. They're all opportunists. They're all trying to make money at the misery of other people. Actually, and then have a minister that is trying to encourage everybody to give money to people in Standing Rock. Now for people dealing with the border issues and migrants, it's really, really disgusting. But it just goes so deep, and this is what are considered liberals and progressive people that are always trying to call the whistle on people who are conservative and Republican, and they are the ones that are the menace in our society.
Okay. So I want to update you on everything that has happened. So remember in January when she gave that interview with Joy,
Mm-hmm.
what else was happening was that she had been detained upon entry into her returning to San Diego from Tijuana by Customs and Border Protection at the San Isidro port of entry, and she was held for questioning. She alleges, and it's true, that she was put on a watch list with more than 50 people who are part of the Border Support Network for her activities in that smuggling operation that I told you was being investigated by the Department of Homeland Security, CBP, Interpol, and others. They took away her Sentry Pass, and on July 2nd of 2019, Amnesty International called for an end to the border surveillance program that she was part of. As well as, on July of 2019, she filed a federal case, Dusha versus the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, alleging violation of her First Amendment right and her Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Wow.
The same laws that were used by the people of No More Deaths
Mm-hmm.
to claim the religious freedom right to be part of a smuggling operation with Pueblo Sin Frontera and Irineo Mujica. Remember that case?
Oh, yeah.
Scott Warren?
Mm-hmm.
Same deal. That's what's happening in this case. And I bet that's what the money that Al Otro Lado is using, that they're raising right now, is for, because they are also suing the quote-unquote fascists at the Department of Homeland Security.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go now to our next slide. And this is from the Border Support Network. It was posted by Julie, who's on their board, for the Minority Humanitarian Foundation, part of the Border Support Network, part of the people being investigated. Remember, these are part of the media producers of media for the platform The Young Turks. Mark Lane works for the Young Turks.
Yeah.
And also, right now, they want to raise money. They
Yeah.
didn't just, this is a fund, by the way, trying to raise $10,000 to give grants to the tune of $250 a piece to migrants that are currently in the United States awaiting their asylum hearings that may never come, so that they can give each migrant $250.
Wow. Jeez.
And I told you, didn't I tell you
Yep.
that they were going to fill the detention facilities? They were going to ask you to pay the money to get them bailed out. They were going to ask you, the American people, to sponsor all the people they brought here for asylum hearings they didn't qualify for. And now they're asking you to support them during the pandemic.
Yep.
Is that what you want to do with your money?
Nope.
If it is, you can. It's up to you. I can't stop you. And what else are the people of the Border Support Network doing to take advantage of the situation? Well, they can't go outside and organize unless they're in their cars, but they're doing that anyway. And they're also doing a lot of Zoom conferences online to spread their propaganda and their nonsense. Lolly B. Lion, Laura Christina Livingston-Berger of the Border Support Network did a live stream with none other than Vanessa Bolin Clemens of Standing Rock fame, the woman that put Mary Trujillo unnecessarily into a hospital, the woman who put Mary Trujillo in an early grave because she, as a so-called paramedic, gave the green light for an elderly woman with dementia who was a poor historian for herself in a hospital alone, helped to put a false police report against Kathleen Bennett, her daughter and caretaker, such that this daughter and mother were ripped apart. Kathleen was sent to a jail to rot for 15 years, but for the fact that this station exonerated her and liberated her, no thanks to the help of people like Vanessa Bolin Clemens, and put her mother, her elderly mother with dementia, in an early grave. These people already have blood on their hands, but that doesn't stop them from trying to continue to defraud the American public. They have no shame. Vanessa Bolin Clemens decided to go on this Zoom conference and live stream it on Facebook to talk about mutual aid. Do y'all remember what they were peddling as part of their mutual aid? Their mutual aid was all about Antifa. And what they were saying in this video is that, mutual aid organizations that we created that go all the way back to Standing Rock. Remember Standing Rock? Wasn't that great?
Oh, I miss Standing Rock. Oh.
And they said that reference to Standing Rock was where they started creating these mutual aid organizations. And mutual aid organizations are so much better than nonprofits, because with nonprofits, with government organizations and institutions, there's all this red tape. You know what else there is? Transparency.
And accountability, yes.
And exactly. And they don't like that.
No.
They don't like accountability. They had no problem peddling all of the fake nonprofits and defunct nonprofits of their friends to try to defraud people out of millions of dollars when they were at Standing Rock. But now they can't stand them. What's going on? Is the jig up? Did people catch up to your fraud? To your graft?
Yep.
Did people see right through the lies of Vanessa Bolin Clemens? Or should I call you Indian woman number 2 as you are listed in your IMDb, you failed actress? Because they're all actors and actresses. Not very good ones,
Yep.
but a lot of them are. A lot of them are. So what is this mutual aid thing? If you don't remember, I told you it was rolled out by the Antifa group connected to the Border Support Network and the blog It's Going Down. And I told you that is exactly who all the activists, including Lolly B, were working with in Mexico to organize the migrants They organized the migrants to keep them protesting, to go and cross the border illegally, to attack our border patrol, to clash with the police in Mexico, to refuse assistance and shelter from the government. And they did it knowing all along that the people that they were educating or coaching, if you will, about how to get into, how to pass their credible fear interview so that they could get put on the waiting list, so that they could get put on the waiting list for an asylum claim, so that they could come to the United States through this loophole of asylum seeking, even though they knew the majority of them would not qualify. Lest you forget, I will never let her forget or Jake Lee forget, they knew it and they said it in this clip where Lolly B asked Jake Lee, how many of these people do you think will actually get it? And this is what he said. They're referring to the asylum. Yes.
Can we guess how many would get it?
I feel like I heard 20%, but I don't know if that's
Yeah, like basically it's not
20 or 30 maybe, but
like it's a low
I don't
percentage
feel
of
like
all the
it's-
people that we've been working with, all the people that are applying. The sad truth is that they will not all get asylum. Like most of them won't get asylum. So it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy.
So are your lies. And now, so is the crock of crap that you want us to swallow. And the fact that you're asking money, that you got your hand out asking for money during a pandemic is disgusting. It's disgusting. Don't you have anything better to do than to associate with all of these Antifa people to try to take advantage of the situation? Check out the post of Vanessa Boland on her page just yesterday a few days ago.
Yep.
This is what they are doing. Rent strikes across the country. And of course, as you know, they are advocating that people shut down the detention facilities and get everyone out. Where did they publish? What is this story? This rent strike spreading blog? It's from It's Going Down. That's what she is propagating on her Facebook page. And she also said that she was interviewed by the Belly of the Beast. The Belly of the Beast, in case you don't know, is an anti-authoritarian anarchist media. We've talked to you about it before. I don't know if you recall this, folks, but a while back I did multiple shows on the Belly of the Beast and the people at the camp that were the people at the Texas camp started by Antifa leader Evan K. Duke, Myron Dewey, and the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe. And I told you that they were building up the camps that were supposed to fight against the border wall being built, and that they were part of a smuggling operation and they wanted to keep the corridors where they smuggle people open. That was the true intention behind making sure that they had these routes. In fact, I showed you that members of the Border Support Network have been convicted of smuggling people and have proudly talked about it in their videos. I also showed you that V. Patel and Garrett Blair of this publication, The Belly of the Beast, were in operation and they were peddling the propaganda of the Carrizo Come Crudo tribe and the Border Support Network Antifa leadership all across the country through their media platform, Belly of the Beast. That's who she's talking to. Here's her post. Belly of the Beast media, hit me up. I want to tell you everything that is happening in Richmond, Virginia. She is communicating with Antifa leadership. She is talking about and propagating Antifa ideals, including the quote-unquote mutual aid. And here is her post demanding money.
Yep.
Demanding money. If you didn't notice in the video screen capture where she appears with Lolly B in the comments is asking for you to PayPal her. PayPal Vanessa. Also, if you want to help me out, PayPal me, because we're doing some mutual aid and we're doing some Zoom videos, and that deserves for you to throw us some money. We're going to go out there. They kept talking about fixing someone's roof for some reason.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that was the same talking points they were using during the disaster relief for hurricanes, where they defrauded people and hurt people and all of these other horrible things that I reported on years ago.
Yep.
Here she is demanding money. And this is the most disgusting way, because they always try to make it about how urgent it is. And like Lolly B with her tears saying, I can't do this anymore by myself. It's so hard. I need you guys to send me money right now. All those tears, all those crocodile's tears, all of that acting, it's supposed to get you riled up. It's supposed to make you go, oh, shoot, I better send that girl $100. She's living out of her car. She don't have no shoes, like Nicole Ramos.
Yep.
All of these people have the same sob story. Vanessa Bolin Clemens has been selling that sob story everywhere she goes, talking about how she's been homeless because you know what she did? She sold all her earthly possessions to go on a pilgrimage to Standing Rock and use her skills as a defunct paramedic to help protect the water and the people. How come you ain't going and volunteering at the hospitals with the COVID virus, Vanessa?
Exactly.
Huh? How about all you street medics and all you fake medics that came out of Standing Rock that have been going around the country to all these protests, being useless? Going down to Mexico, being useless. Why don't you go and help the people in the hospitals and support our frontline workers now? Oh, is that too scary for you? Because that would really mean having to sacrifice. Because that would really mean putting yourself in danger. And none of you are actually willing to do that because you're all a bunch of liars and cowards that cost our state millions and millions of dollars. Is that why you're not helping? You won't even mention that you're a EMT now. You were known as Vanessa Bolin Clemens, the nurse.
Yep.
The EMT. But now you won't mention it at all. But you know what they did mention? They mentioned how she was called Red Bull. And they talked about the fact that on their walkie-talkies, on their communications,
Yep.
they would order Red Bull. You know what that was code for back in Standing Rock? Meth. Methamphetamine.
Wow.
They had a little joke about their inside joke about methamphetamine. Oh, and you do recall how the pastor of the Agape shelter that reported that these activists that were involved in the kidnapping of an unaccompanied minor were giving the migrants methamphetamine, right? You do recall how they were giving them drugs, including methamphetamine. Okay, good. I'm glad that we're up to speed.
Yep.
I mean, pardon the pun, but here she is, shamelessly demanding your money, saying, I need you all who say you love me, who support me, to stop. I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. I'm doing, oh, that's right, she has a southern drawl. I'm doing things to keep people supplied and safe. I need help now. I absolutely need $287 to get a phone, to get a person's phone tuned on to help me. Please help me. Y'all, I can't keep doing this alone. Right now, I am Richmond Indigenous Society. I am the vulnerable population. I am the one at risk. I need help like yesterday. Please help by donating to turn on my support's phone. I just need your help on this. I am so tired. She needs your money for her phone bill, for her partners or her support phone bill. Do you have any extra cash during the pandemic to support the Standing Rock phonies and posers phone bills? Do you? You want to send some money her way, Duke?
No.
She's so tired. Folks, this is nothing more than a ploy for these disaster vultures to get into your wallet and also to campaign for Bernie, to campaign for the Democratic Socialists of America, the Justice Democrats, the brand new Congress, for AOC, for the Squad, for Ilhan Omar, and of course for Bernie Sanders. And all of the people in the Bernie Sanders camp go right back to Standing Rock, including Naomi Klein. Here she is asking for you to support Bernie, who's apparently not doing very well if people like Naomi Klein have to come out exacerbated in their tweets and yell at people and say, it's not too late for everyone to come together, to come to their damned senses and support Bernie Sanders for president. You know she's upset when she uses G damned in her sentence. I mean, really? You got to yell at people? He's a true mensch who spent his entire life fighting for the precise policies that would be saving lives right now on a truly staggering scale. Then why is it that in their latest Zoom conference with AOC, Bernie, and the squad, they weren't talking about solutions? They weren't talking about policies. These are lawmakers that are sitting in office right now. They could be doing something other than fear-mongering, other than talking about how there should be a moratorium on all the rent. There should be a moratorium on everybody's mortgages and bills and all of this stuff. Some people are still working and can pay their bills. Why does everyone have to not pay their bills? Some people are obviously not going to be able to pay their bills. And people in the government are trying to do something to make unemployment and grants and stimulus available to those folks. Local communities are struggling to figure out how that they rally around and support people in need. But this kind of, basically fear-mongering and pandering to their base so they can campaign during a pandemic is just gross. Do something real for the people, your policymakers. Why aren't you thinking about what kind of policies you can put forward for what will happen to people's credit scores during this time and how we can address that? Because, as long as you're not able to pay your bills, your credit scores are going to tank. And what's going to happen when we come back from the epidemic?
Yeah. What's going to happen with repayment of the rent and the mortgages?
Exactly.
Mortgage companies are giving people maybe 60 days.
How come they don't come up with a policy to restructure that or some plans? I mean, don't you think even just sitting there, you're not a politician, that there's some things that people are going to need to address that people in law and policy should be thinking about right now?
Yeah, and Bernie Sanders is still in Congress. He's still a policy maker. The campaigning piece, forget about that. Just actually do something real. You want people to like what you're doing. Do something tangible that's actually dealing with the problem instead of pontificating about how things would be so good if you were actually in charge. Well, get in charge and do something.
They're already in a position of power as lawmakers. They don't have to wait to be president of the United States to help the people now.
Yep.
And they're not. They're just aimlessly doing their Zoom things, basically sour graping the fact that, his campaign is tanking. People are rallying around the Democratic middleman, which is Biden right now. And they're not the only ones. The Indian problems, fake Indian, pretend Indian, Indian problem watch party is Desiree Kane of Standing Rock fame, of the Bernie she reported on People for Bernie's platform.
Yeah.
And she was also with Netroots Nation. The woman here is also doing Zoom videos and talking about how will the Native people be affected by the pandemic and what can they do? What kind of help will they need? And how will the people that create a lot of problems in Indian country be the saviors of those problems?
Yeah.
Because she is part of the problem, if not the icing on top of the problem and the giant cherry turd on top of the icing. That's what the Indian problem, as well as this organization, represent. And the Indigenous Environmental Network, another Standing Rock organization, nonprofit, who is languishing right now, figuring out ways to spread the virus by having members of their groups getting together to put masks on and talk about staging protests that they can't really ask people to attend, is sharing articles by Bill McKibben of 360.org complaining about how the coronavirus pandemic is being ignored by people that are constructing the pipelines.
Okay, yeah.
They're very upset that construction of infrastructure continues to go on and they can't be the boots on the ground to disrupt it like they did at Standing Rock.
Exactly.
They never stopped it.
Exactly.
They held out till the pipeline companies and others probably paid them off to stop them from continuing their battles. But in truth,
Yeah,
they didn't stop nothing.
they weren't even focused on really doing that. It was
No.
all a lie. Yeah.
No, it was all a lie. And they raised a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars for their leadership. The Washington Post recently put out this article that they shared saying that American Indians could get wiped out, the highest rates of disease that make COVID-19 more lethal. Well, it's not just a matter of resources, poverty, a lack of infrastructure, and a lack of health care. It's also the fact that you have people in the highest parts of their leadership, many of whom came straight out of Standing Rock, that are doing irresponsible things like telling people to meet up to make a video to protest a pipeline and not honor social distancing. It is people like Brennan Nastasio, which is part of this missing and murdered Indigenous women's group, that are spreading lies about the, people shooting computer chips into you with the vaccine.
With the vaccine, yeah.
And it is the irresponsible rhetoric of people spreading misinformation and lies about this pandemic. And being, irresponsible in the way that they're messaging, because they're so money hungry and they're so concerned with continuing their campaigns of organizing. Mm-hmm. They're also spreading this idea that the U.S. is using the coronavirus outbreak as an opportunity to steal indigenous land. These are just some of the things that they are spreading everywhere because they really want to make you believe that they're victims right now, much more so than the rest of the country. Much more so. I mean, I'm seeing this from Sean King. I'm seeing this from all over the place. Black people are dying at greater rates. Black people are dying at greater percentages in places like Chicago, in places that Black people are in higher populations, or in places where Native people are in higher populations. Well, of course, during a pandemic, a certain percentage of the population is going to die, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your wealth, your access. Nobody has any kind of immunity to this. The coronavirus isn't racist. It's not going around saying, you know what? I'm going to kill more Black people. The idea that people are trying to message in one way or another that this virus, like the chickenpox blankets, can be used to smallpox,
Yep.
like the smallpox blankets can be selectively used to kill people on purpose, is ridiculous. Whatever you believe about the Chinese government and the spread of this virus and the conspiracy behind that, the fact that it's out in the world, it does not discriminate. The virus does not discriminate. Mm-hmm. So this is a bunch of propaganda to self-victimize so that they can continue their organizing campaigns and, of course, ask for more money. I'm going to show you how all of this connects to The Sacred and the Snake, the film that I think is going to be released soon, probably to help in AOC's re-election efforts, and all of the people that I think are going to be featured in that film based on the photos released by The Sacred and the Snake Facebook and social media pages and website. And how a lot of those folks identified in that movie were directly responsible for putting a dementia stricken 82-year-old Oglala Lakota elder in an early grave. That's what they were all involved with. Kidnapping and neglect of an elderly woman with dementia such that she ended up dying. And falsely imprisoning another Oglala Lakota woman, also an elder, the daughter of this woman, for 6 months. They wanted to put her in jail for 15 years. They framed her. Their lives, the lives of these two women, were meaningless. Meaningless to all of these so-called protectors of the sacred, protectors of Indigenous women and Indigenous right. They're hypocrites. Believe me, I know firsthand, I investigated a lot of them. I always suspected that the politicians, including Tulsi Gabbard and AOC, who were all hanging around the veterans groups, who were all hanging around the leadership of this camp, that had everything to do with framing an innocent woman and killing her mother. This is the proof, and I'm going to have it for you on my next program here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo-Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Have a great evening, and God bless all of you.